And so we finally got into the very last prompt for the FuckAthon. Like, oh my god, I legitimately recorded 9 videos with 20 recommended reads each for the prompts. Like, I blow my own mind. But anyway, we've gotten to the very last prompt, which is the FuckAgeism prompt. And for those that don't know, this entire series has just been me recommending books across different genres that you could pick from in order to build your TBR for the FuckAthon, which is a month-long readathon that I created, and it's holding in July. It started in the 1st and is going to run all the way to the 31st, and I'm just so proud of everybody that has been participating so far. I've been seeing your tweets, I've been seeing everything. Like, please keep interacting with me. It makes me so happy to see people so psyched and pumped about this. It's just wow. okay, and so far I've done recommended reads for the individual prompts, which means that there's the recommended reads for the fuck racism, fuck the patriarchy, fuck ageism, fuck heteronormativity, fuck realism, fuck pollution, fuck classism, fuck abuse, and what we're finally getting to the fuck ableism prompt. As always, I will leave the announcement video and the links to the different recommended reads for you to check out, all down in the description bar below. I've also finally put together my Google Docs that would also be down in the description bar below. That contains like a lot of the books I recommended and the other books that people suggested in the comments. I would of course be populating this list throughout the entire month, so you could just occasionally check it out and see. And if you have any recommended reads, just ask me at the FuckAthon, and I will definitely add it to the list. So yes.
To be talking to you, belladonna. Should have taken a break, not an Oxford comma. Take what I want when I wanna, and I want you.
Hello everybody, Nora back again. First on the list is Care Work, Dreaming Disability Justice by Leah Lakshmi-Piepzna-Samarasinha. I hope I did not murder that name. I sincerely hope I did not murder that name. Anyway, Care Work is a collection of essays that explores the politics and realities of disabled queer people of color and the work they are doing to find one another and to build their community. It's a crucial book for anyone and everyone with a desire to build communities that are not exclusionary, and a call to arms to ensure that every single time we're talking about community, there is absolutely no one left behind. As expected, this book is high on my list of books to get, and I can't wait to get it and hopefully read it. As always, like I always say throughout all these videos, 90% of the books on this list I've not yet read. There are also books I intend to read that cover this topic, so this video serves as both a recommended reads video for you and for myself as well. Second on the list is The War That Saved My Life by Kimberly Brubaker Bradley. Now, if you enjoy reading historical novels, then this might just be the book for you. It's a middle grade book set during World War II, where we follow Ada, who is 10 years old and has not been left out of the house because her mother is humiliated by the fact that Ada was born with a twisted foot. When her baby brother Jamie is shipped out to London in order to escape the war, Ada sneaks out to join him, and together with her brother, they move in with Susan Smith, a woman who is dealing with the trauma of living during the war and is forced to take these little kids in. Now, Susan is not the most pleasant person to live with. Like I said, she is suffering from extreme PTSD, but Ada is just delighted to finally be able to have the world open and available to her. She decides that she's going to learn how to read, she learns how to ride a pony, and she even learns to watch for spies. And slowly over time, she learns to trust Susan, and Susan in turn learns to love these 2 kids that are living with her. She loves them like they are her own kids. But the bond between Susan and Ada and Jamie would be tested when Ada's mother returns and wants her children back in her cruel grasp. The book sounds heartwarming and in turn heartbreaking, with a story that is rooted in found family and creating a world outside of our trauma and abuse and pain. And as such, it also does fulfill the fuck abuse prompt as well. Now, the third book on the list is for lovers of all things space opera and science fiction novels, and that is The Warrior's Apprentice by Lois McMaster Bujold. Bujold? I think it's Bujold. This is the second book in the Vokosigan saga, but it reads as a standalone. And if you want, you could read the first book, but you can always start the series from the second book, because this is when the actual hero that you've been waiting for from the very start, from the beginning of the first book, actually does show up. And our hero is Miles Bokosigan, who was born with a condition that makes his bone extremely fragile, and into a family with great military leaders. But when he doesn't get into the military academy on his own planet and feels that he's failed and disappointed his entire family, Miles leaves his own planet and travels to his mother's planet and inadvertently creates a mercenary army. I know, it sounds so good, and it's a space opera series I've wanted to read for so long, especially because Miles is hyperactive, is small, is brilliant. He's basically one of those quirky friends that are usually side characters in books, but now he's the main character, is in his own book, and it's just, I want to read it as badly as I want to read the Star Wars books. And that's saying a lot, because I really want to read the Star Wars book. So yes. Then there's So Lucky by Nicola Griffith, where we meet Mara Tagarelli. She's the head of a multi-million-dollar AIDS foundation and a committed martial artist whose life unravels in a week when a fall leads to her being diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. Now her body is letting her down. Family and friends are treating her like a victim and turning away from her. Her wife leaves her, but Mara is angry and unwilling to accept this narrative, and instead builds her own community and learns to fight. It sounds raw and honest and brutal and angry, and it sounds amazing. Next is A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kemmerer, which is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, except that our Beauty is Appa, who is taken from modern day Washington DC to help break the curse on Prince Ren and Emberford, the mythical lands that suffer as a result of the curse that was placed on him. Appa is smart, she's resourceful, she thinks fast on her feet, and she also has cerebral palsy and refuses to let anybody treat her disability like, oh, she cannot help save the world or save herself. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a fan of the Beauty and the Beast fairy tale. It's, of all the fairy tales, it's definitely not my favorite, even though in the animation I really did love Belle. But I don't like the fairy tale of all the fairy tales, and I did not like the underlying thread of Not Like Other Girls that ran through this book, and the villain was pretty one-dimensional. And speaking of the villain, Lilith said some pretty ableist shit, which I was not surprised about, because she is a villain. Of course she's going to say stupid shit like that. But if you love Beauty and the Beast and you love fairy tale retellings, then totally consider picking this up. Also, Appa is really cool. Like, she's really badass. I really did like her. So yes. And then there's A 5-Minute Life by Emma Scott, which tells the story of Thea, artistic, brilliant, beautiful, effervescent, who has only 5 minutes to live every day. You see, Thea was involved in an accident that killed her family, but also left her with the second worst documented case of amnesia in the world. Every 300 seconds, a memory resets. And then there's Jim, who's learned to carry an armor with him everywhere and has learned to keep people at arm's length due to having been shuffled around in foster care a lot ever since he was born, to be precise. He's been living most of his life pretty much on autopilot and going about his day-to-day until one day he looks up in the sanitarium where he works and spots Thea. Theirs is a love that is lived in 5 minutes intervals until Thea has an opportunity to take a risky and highly experimental surgery that would either give them the time they need together or destroy it all completely. It sounds romantic and sad and heartbreaking and brilliant, and also a book I want to read. Like, it sounds like it would break me, and I'm ready for it. Next up is my pick for the FuckAtHon Prompts, and that is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo, which is a reread. If you spent any amount of time on my channel, you know that this was one of my favorite books from last year, and I've been looking forward to rereading it ever since, and now I get the chance to do so because one, we have a character, one of the main characters walks with a limp and also cannot bear to be touched due to a traumatizing experience he had in his childhood. He does it can't be touched. And we have another character who has a reading disorder, and like my babies are amazing. And like, what can I say? I love this book. If you like heist novels with character relationship that is organic and brilliant, with witty banter, and morally great characters you will root for, especially because in Ketterdam there is actually no person who is a good person. They are either morally great or bad, and the 6 characters we follow in this series are just, they're utter perfection. That's what I'm going to say. It's a heist novel, found family, multiple characters. I don't want to go into any details because I want you to walk into it this surprised. Just know that Lee Bardugo solidified herself as one of my favorite authors with this book, and that is the truth. And then there's Wonder by R.J. Palacio, which tells us the story of Augie, an amazing boy whose face is different from everybody else, who up until when the book starts has been homeschooled all his life, but now he's starting the 5th grade and he's going to this new school, and all he wants is to be treated like an ordinary kid, even though his new classmates can't look past his face. Now we are told Wonder from both Augie's perspective, his sister's perspective, her boyfriend's perspective, his classmates, his teacher's perspective, and quite a lot of people around him's perspective, to show how every member of his community interacts with his disability as they learn empathy, compassion, and acceptance. And it sounds heartwarming. I want to read it. And like, ever since Jesse of Both Eyes and Book, ever since they recommended this book, I've been dying to read it, and like it just had to make this list. And the next book on my list is also a middle grade book, and that is Song for a Whale by Lynn Kelly, where we follow Iris. She's a 12-year-old tech genius who is fantastic at fixing old radios and fixing up our classroom's computer, but is treated like she's not very smart because she's the only deaf girl in her school. And even her classmates who claim to know sign language don't really make any form of sense when they are talking to her. So she does feel very, very lonely until she learns about Blue 55, a whale who sings in a different frequency compared to other whales, and so cannot communicate with the other whales. And Iris feels like she understands exactly what the whale must be going through, and decides that she would invent a way to sing to him. And she also has to figure out how she would bring the song to him because he's 3,000 miles away. It sounds delightful. It sounds delightful and beautiful and heartwarming, and it's yet another book I cannot wait to read. And then there's A Time to Dance by Padma Venkatramma, which follows Vida. I'm not sure if it's Vida or Veda. Which follows Vida, a dance prodigy who lives and breathes dance. Like, her every moment is dance until her dreams are shattered when an accident leaves her a below the knee amputee. Now, adjusting to a prosthetic leg for someone who is used to the applause of an adoring crowd every time she moves is humbling and devastating at the same time, and also very painful. But Veda refuses to allow that to crush her dreams, and so starts training from the very start, starts attending dance classes with the youngest dancers and starts to learn the basics all over again. But then she meets Govinda, a young man to whom dance is a spiritual pursuit, and who in turn encourages Vida to reconnect with the world around her and to use dance to discover who she is. It's a book written in verse that captures the beauty of the ancient Bharatanatyam dance form. I'm certain I murdered that. I apologize for that. But it captures the beauty of this dance, and I just want to hold that beauty in my hand and read it. Like, I want to do that so bad. Next on the list is The Running Dream by Gwendolyn Van Dranen. Now, high school track athlete Jessica believes her life is over when a school bus accident leaves her an amputee and she has to return to school with a prosthetic limb. As someone who lives to run, having to learn how to walk is devastating to her, especially because due to her accident, she needs someone to tutor her in math, and the person who is doing so is Rosa, a girl with cerebral palsy who, just like the rest of the school, Jessica had spent the school years ignoring. It's an exceptionally painful situation, because when she returns to school, Jessica is faced with the same situation. People don't know exactly how to react to her, and so instead our classmates choose to just act like she's not there. But now Jessica, with the help and support of her family, her friends, her coach, and her track teammate, she just may learn to run again. But this time around, she doesn't want to learn alone. She intends to take Rosa along with her. And then we have On the End of Gone by Corinne Doivis. Is it Doivis or Divis? I'm not sure. I apologize. This is an apocalyptic story, and when I say apocalyptic story, I mean apocalyptic story in the sense that a comet is making its way to Earth. Like, that is meant to be, this is going to be the end of humanity completely. And we follow Dennis, who together with her mother and her sister Iris have been assigned to a temporary shelter just outside their hometown in Amsterdam. The only problem is that Dennis can't find Iris anywhere, and our drug addict mother does not seem to understand the urgency of their situation. At the very last minute, they run into a generation ship that is scheduled to leave the Earth to colonize new worlds after the comet hits. However, every single passenger on board has a particular skill set that they bring to the table. Dennis, however, is autistic and is terrified that she would not be allowed to stay on board. Plus, what about her mother and her sister? And I think it's important for me to note that this book is heavily character driven. Like, there's barely any plot. It's more all about following Dennis on this journey as she strives to find a place for herself, as she strives to find a place where she can fit in. Now, I actually do like the occasional character driven story, so it's definitely a book I have on my TBR and I want to read. But if it is that you really prefer your stories, especially your apocalyptic story, being more plot heavy than character driven, then this might not be the book for you. I would like to state though that this is an own voices novel, because Corinne is herself autistic, and this book is also chock full of diverse characters, so the representation is on point, and they are queer characters, so it should also fulfill the fuck heteronormativity prompt as well. Next is Lovely, Dark and Deep by Justina Chen, because our lead protagonist Violet develops extreme photosensitivity, and I'm trying to remember a book with a character that does have that level of extreme photosensitivity, and nothing comes to mind, so I absolutely had to add this book to the list. Thus, we see the effect of what developing this condition has on Violet, who is a high school senior and up to that point has been having a blast and now has to kiss any form of normalcy goodbye because her parents are very protective. They dress her up in an almost spacesuit. They take away her phone because her phone is causing her skin to burn. They board up all her windows, forbid her from going anywhere. She goes from being a girl who was traveling the world and going on overseas vacations to not being allowed to leave her room. But then she meets Josh, this boy that she likes, and is willing to break all the rules just so that she can find the barest form of normalcy in her life. It sounds very intriguing and I want to read it. Next on my list is A Taxonomy of Love by Rachel Allen, which is technically a 7-year love story that starts when Spencer is 13 and meets his new neighbor Hope. She's fearless and amazing and is in awe, especially because he's having Tourette syndrome, has meant that all his life his elder brother has always teased him. But now here is this girl who challenges him to climb trees, who encourages him for them to plan their world trip together. But as they grow older, feelings get more complicated, things get messier, and they slowly drift apart. It's both cute and fluffy and angsty, and I want it. Now, if you like your books poignant and beautiful with vivid writing and imagery, then you might just consider All the Lights We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr, where we follow the lives of two young people whose childhood has been completely destroyed by the Second World War. We have Marie-Laure, a Parisian who has been blind ever since she was 6 years old and who has fled with her father to the citadel of Saint Malo. And we also have Wenner, a German boy who finds himself caught in the middle of Nazi soldiers, helping them track down any form of resistance. It's a story about people's humanity during a war, and it sounds haunting, and I want to read it so it can devastate me completely. Next we have One by Sarah Crossan, which tells the story of Grace and Tippy, 16-year-old twins who have been conjoined at the waist. Now, the fact that they are still alive at age 16 is a feat in itself, because the life expectancy of conjoined twins is usually 2 to 3 years old. But now they are starting high school, and this life that has always been fragile as it is becomes even more so. And it's a book written in verse, and I want to read it so bad because I know I am going to cry. I'm going to have my heart in my throat throughout the entire book, and I want that to happen, and I cannot wait for that to happen. And then there's Dearest Rogue by Elizabeth Oit. Now, young Noria, who loved historical romance, would have really loved this book, and especially because, like, younger me, Elizabeth Oit was hands down one of my favorite authors. So seeing this book just brings back memories, and I'm smiling, but also because in this book our lead Phoebe is ready to have a blast. She's ready to live a life on the town, especially now that her sister is married to a duke. But she's almost blind, and her overprotective older brother just would not let her be, and he assigns her a bodyguard, Captain Trevelyan. He's proud and broody and has a leg injury, got fighting for the king. Not like that stops him from riding and shooting like the best of them. And as far as it's concerned, protecting Phoebe should be easy, piece of cake, until she gets kidnapped twice. What can I say? I live for this. I live for this shit. But yes. Next on the list is The Mating of Michael by Eli Easton, which tells us the story of Michael, who works as a nurse and also has a side job as a gay sex surrogate, which is a job description, the sex surrogate part, that never fails to cost him his relationship the minute his partners discover the truth. The only thing that brings him comfort is reading science fiction novels, especially books by his favorite author, J.C. Guys, who turns out to be James Galloway. James wrote a sci-fi bestseller at age 18 when he was bedridden from polio, and for the last 10 years has so isolated himself that he's lost his inspiration and his will to live, and is convinced that he's unlovable because he's bound to a wheelchair. But when he's forced to go to a book signing, he meets Michael, and they slowly realize that they are made for each other. It sounds sweet and heartbreaking, and heart made it to my list, especially because of the fact that there are so few books that actually handle the topic of sex surrogacy. So yes, having it represented in this book, it had to make this list. It absolutely had to. Then there's The Madness of Lord Ian Mackenzie by Jennifer Ashley, which also makes this list because Lord Ian Mackenzie is autistic. And I remember I had to think, I'm like, when was the last time, if any, did I read an historical romance book with an autistic main character? And I'm like, I can't remember. I sincerely can't. So I just like, this totally had to make the list. It's a love story between the widow Beth Ackley, who doesn't want any drama in her life. She grew up with an alcoholic father. She had to take care of her sickly, frail mother, and also an older companion. So now that she's free, she just wants to learn. She wants to learn art. She wants to travel the world. She wants to live a life unencumbered, as she just enjoys her wealth and thinks fondly of her late husband. Ian Mackenzie, however, just would not let her be. And it's my, like, I love that shit. That shit just sounds so hilarious and so good, and I want to read it. I want to read it so bad. And then finally there's Feminist Queer Crip by Alison Kafer, which reads like a bunch of essays written for a dissertation paper, all with the aim to show the intersection of disability, feminist, queer, and race studies, and how truly interwoven and interconnected they are. Now, like I said, it's pretty academic, so it might not be for everybody, but I like the occasional academic text, so I am definitely looking forward to reading this. And I cannot believe it, but that is the very last set of prompts for this year's FuckAthon. I am shocked that I actually was able to, you know, I pulled this off. 9 videos. Wow, my mind is blown. But yes, this was so much fun, but I'm also thankful that it's over because it was a lot of work. But yes, please let me know if you have any recommendations for the FuckAtHon prompts. Please put them down in the comments bar below. Like I said earlier, I would have in the description bar the link to the spreadsheet so you can see all the many recommendations, both the ones I've gotten from comments and the ones I've put together. Just populated. I'm interested in populating that list. I want us to be able to come back to it as a reference page every time it is that we just, you know, we want to read certain books and we're looking for recommendations. We can always come back to that as a resource. If you like this video, please do not forget to give it a big thumbs up. Check out my other videos, subscribe if you want to. I make new videos every Sundays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and I'll see you soon. Until then, stay passionate, love books, love yourself. Bye.
My strange addiction, my doctors can't explain my symptoms or